I was a dreamer. I definitely was a dreamer. What if there's more than this? What if there's more than just Sheffield? What if there's something else?
Thinking about what is your passion, what sparks your interest, because then you're going to get the best out
You
of
need
it.
to be motivated to keep coming, and it has to go beyond the title.
My guest this episode is Shirleena Celestine. She is an executive coach, and her consultancy helps leaders bring human connection to their workplace. Previously, she was globally responsible for driving inclusive products and services for Apple Music, Podcast, Beats by Dre, Shazam, and Platoon, working closely with influential people in the industry such as Blair, Underwood,
And Savannah James. Welcome to the Vanessa Podcast, a business and careers podcast where I give you the lowdown on the latest news and chat with influential movers and shakers, top achievers, and all-round incredible people. We explore their viewpoints, how they've got to where they are, and how you can too. I'm your host, Vanessa Sanyauke, the founder and CEO of The Hill and Girls Talk. We connect the world's largest employers with talented people. We have a global community of over 60,000 women, helping them to level up in their careers. If you want to learn more about how the world economy affects you or how others have made their dreams come true, then grab your favorite drink. This is your time to laugh, learn, and level up. Shirleena, thank you so much for being a guest on the Vanessa Podcast. I'm really excited to have you. How are you today?
Well, it's good to be here. So, number one, thank you for even having me in this wonderful space of yours. And how am I? That's a very good question. How am I, especially being in the Americas? Yeah, I am really good. I am really good. I mean, without stating the obvious, there's lots of, we can say, activity at the very least. Of course, that is happening here in the Americas. But I think you have to find a way to carve out your own space and to carve out your own peace, because if you don't, you'll just get caught up in the madness. So as for me and my house, we are just fine.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm really, really glad. And I know you, so I've known you for a couple of years now. But for our audience who are listening and watching, how would you introduce yourself?
Good question. I would introduce myself as a friend to the many. I lead with my heart. What drives me is my faith in both God and in humanity. And I'm always striving for better, greater, and definitely fairness. So it's more keywords really, as opposed to a single statement. But I'm also a very happy person, very sarcastic. I love a good joke. And I'm normally the one telling it, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I loved it. I loved when I met you. I just felt this warmth, and you are a very purpose-led person. And I feel like I'm really excited for everyone to really understand how you can live a purpose-led life, but also keep your values. I feel like your values are always aligned and you're so thoughtful. I love that. You're so thoughtful. So I'm just excited to kind of get into your your brain today.
Thanks.
We know about your amazing, amazing career, but I want to kind of just go back and see, what were you like growing up? Were you always this way? What was your childhood like?
I think growing up, I was very influenced by my mom. My mom, Rubina Lorna Forbes, she's no longer with us. She's transitioned now. But my mom was quite a principled person on fairness. And I think that was probably my first experience of equality and equity. Whether it was like my brother stealing, the bourbon biscuit that I had positioned to have later on in the evening, and he just thought, I'm having it, I don't care what you feel. And me screaming to my mum, that's not fair. And my mum, Jamaican born woman, and she just came as the judge, jury, and executor. And my mum would always say, that's not fair. So I always grew up around a strong woman who was driven by fairness. So that was always me. And so no matter what circumstances, whether I was playing with my friends at school, I always had that about myself. I was a dreamer. I definitely was a dreamer for sure. I used the corners, all corners of my imagination to just imagine the what if. And I think it was that part of my imagination that took me to, what if there's more than this? What if there's more than just Sheffield? What if there's more than just, yes, I come to Sunday school and I'm in the choir and, I'm running around with my mates. What if there's something else that's actually out there? So definitely a dreamer, definitely was about fairness and equality. And I was passionate. Even if I was passionately wrong, I'm going to be passionate. I was so
Yeah.
convinced I was right. Like
Yeah.
there was,
I can
and
relate to
then,
that.
like when someone wants to correct you, I struggled because I'm like, I'm right. So definitely passion was at the center. And I understood joy and laughter. I had, in my household, my mum's undeniable laugh, I think is what still echoes in me today, which is why I do like to smile and laugh quite a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate to that in terms of, I don't know whether it's a cultural thing around black
Mhm.
households, but through the
Yeah.
pain, through the struggles, there's always that
Right.
laughter and finding the
Right.
joy in,
Yes.
yeah, and
Yeah. Normally
everything.
at someone else's expense.
Yes,
And we don't
exactly.
mean it. Well, we mean it. And it's like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I gotta go there because it's bringing me joy. So yeah.
exactly. Being able to laugh at things. One of the things I also want to touch on is education. It seems like a very common thread in terms of your career. So you've got a PhD, and then you're a graduate of University of Lincoln and University of Sheffield. So how has education shaped your career and outlook, and why have you put such an emphasis on the academic side?
It's a really good question. First and foremost, I will lay the landscape that education was not a thing for me. My school experience of education was not a pleasant one. I think, like many children, and especially growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I was just trying to figure out how is it that I've got Jamaican parents, but yet I'm born in the UK and they're telling me stuff at school and my parents are like, go sit down. So I was just trying to get that straight. But my school experience, certainly back at that time, I was facing discrimination, things like hearing the teacher say, "Oh, you won't become anything," taking on those typical roles in plays like being the rapper or the bad person. So my school experience wasn't necessarily the most positive. I had terrible grades as it relates to the GCSEs, but somewhere in the back of my mind I also knew I was struggling with something that I couldn't name for myself. I had a desire to be good. Everybody else seemed to be good, but I was struggling. And I made a few attempts at university. I probably say from like being 18 into my 20s, and I just could not get a handle on it no matter how hard I tried. It was only later on that when I went to the University of Sheffield that I was actually then diagnosed with dyslexia. And while it was a weight off my shoulder quite quickly, I saw the vision of stigma. I thought I'm stupid, I'm slow, I'm not as capable as everyone else. And then the flash of my mother, having come from Jamaica at such a young age, initially she was left in Jamaica with her siblings. When she came to England, she missed all of her education. My mum couldn't read or write, so she was an illiterate. And that limited my mum. So immediately I was seeing my own limitations. So, having had that diagnosis, I then went through the process and then discovered what support could actually be put into place. And that is what led to the success of me graduating at the University of Sheffield. So, that was one thing. The second thing for me, as it relates to that, was also, I would definitely say, just the fact of nobody else in my family having had a degree. my mum was quite hard on me. And yeah, my dad was present. He was a typical Jamaican, just silent
Yeah.
until, he needed to come through with the final word. So my dad was always present. But with that being said, I remember sometimes my mum just being so frustrated, so angry. And she loved me and we had the best time. But I remember one day I was at home, I was chilling. I don't know what I was watching. I was probably watching Rugrats or something random from the 80s. And my mum just burst in from the kitchen and said to me, "Get up from there." And I was like, "What's the problem?" And it was like she must have been in the kitchen reminiscing on her own history and what I hadn't done. And she just laid it on me like, "What are you doing? And why are you just sitting here watching the TV?" And I'm like, "I'm just chilling. But later on, as you get older and you mature, I realized it was love that was pushing through. It was her passion to say, "You have so much more of a greater opportunity. This is why we came. This is why we weathered the storm. This is why we suffered in ways that we did, so that it would give you the shoulders. Now stand on them." So I then became the first person in my family to get a degree. And while, sociology and the degree itself is wonderful, it was more about breaking a generational curse. So to do that, and then as soon as I did that, I swore blind. I was never going to study ever again, ever, ever. But I always had this desire to be PhD, and it was purely so that I could sign it, Dr. Shirleena Celestine.
Love it. Yes.
Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing more
Nothing
than
else.
that. Girl, like Dr.
Yeah.
Celestine, yes.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I
That was all.
love it. Yeah.
So I remember being in the lockdown working at Apple, and I'm about to just submit my final thesis, thank God. But I remember being in the lockdown and, God opened up such a door for me to do some incredible work in Apple, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But I remember getting towards the ending of 2020 and my husband, Namdi, said, "What are you doing exactly?" And I'm like, "I'm doing, and great things are happening." He's like, "No, what are you doing?"
For you.
And I was like, "Oh God, here we go." And I remember it being such an echo in my spirit and my soul to say, yeah, I'm doing lots of things, but what am I actually doing? What am I getting out of this? What's the purpose? What's the meaning behind all of this? And this was I was bringing quite a lot of education about the Black community and so much more, and providing moments for Apple especially. But what was the purpose behind it all? And I remember saying to him, years before, that I wanted to do a PhD. So I raised it with him. And he said, "Well, why don't you research and see what's out there?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." But anyway, I did. I found this PhD. It happened to be the first PhD in the world to offer a PhD in equality, diversity, and inclusion. And so I knew at that time, 2020, the killing of George Floyd and so forth, everybody's going to go for it. And so I was really fortunate that I was 1 out of 10 at that time to be accepted.
Wow.
And I knew that it was pipping me to be the first Black woman in the world to hold a PhD, specifically in this area. So it had a lot of meaning for me, even more so. But after this, as soon as I submit, 'cause I'm due to submit in September, I'm done.
Then
It's just
you'll be officially like a Dr. Celestine.
yes, and I will be telling everyone I will not be answering Shirleena.
I love it, Dr. Celestine. Okay, I'll be calling you that. I'll be calling you that because it's a lot of hard work to get there, right? You've worked hard,
Listen,
but you better
yes,
call me by my
yes,
title,
the
right?
sleepless nights, honestly,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh no, that's amazing. I mean, I guess there are going to be people from the Black community watching, and I guess just people in general are going to be watching or listening. What would you want them to, I guess, take away? What would be your message around your journey with education? Like, what are you always saying to other people who are thinking like yourself? Maybe they might think I'm not smart enough, how I'm going to do it. Because I'm scared of doing like a PhD is absolutely scary. I'm just trying to see if I can get an honorary one. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to wait
Yeah,
until I'm about
you do it.
until it's like, 'cause
No.
it's scary. I'm telling you, it is scary, the hard work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you've done
yeah.
that. But what would you say to people who are scared of that journey?
No, I hear you. Do you know the thing is, I never imagined that I could even get a degree, let alone a PhD. And I think, do you know what I really realized about studying is forget about the title degree, even forget about the title PhD. What you have to really focus on is, what do you want to learn more about? What do you want to become an expert in the field of? Because ultimately, whether you're doing the degree, whether you're doing the PhD, this is about you saying, I want to take the time to commit to simply research and study this particular area as much as I can, in as broad of a way as I can, so that I can become an expert, or at the very least know what I'm talking about. That is it. I had tried to study, I think one of the degrees that I tried to study, well, there was two that I failed at. One was law, and the second was, I think, business studies. Now, Shirleena, yeah, what y'all do? Now, the bottom line is,
Yeah,
girl, yeah, you may have the looks, you may have the poise. It's not for you. You know
you're
why?
right.
I'm
Yeah.
not passionate about any of those areas. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I'm not, so you just find something you're passionate about, and all you're basically doing, you're just making a commitment to just research and read and write about that area for a particular period of time, so that you can become an expert. And to be honest with you, even that word, become the expert, it's really so that people can come and speak to you and ask you and get your insights and thoughts, so that you can help influence those key areas. And that's genuinely, Vanessa, how I've approached it, is get rid of the titles, because if it was down to PhD, there's no way. I got nail appointments, like I got infills. I don't have time.
I see what you mean, but you're right. It's like thinking about what is your passion, what sparks your interest, because then you're going to get the best out of it, rather than thinking, okay, I need to have the title, a degree, a PhD. Yeah, being sort of
Yeah, you
curious.
need to be motivated to keep coming, and it has to go beyond the title of it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you so much. That's hit a light bulb moment for me, actually. I want to talk about your corporate career, right? So
Mhm,
you've held, in terms of the early part of your career, so you've worked at Specsavers,
mhm,
Capital One, Kaplan, and then Sheffield Hallam University. So
mhm.
working in corporate culture, what did you learn from those environments? And what did they teach you that
Good
like
question.
prepared you?
Very good
Yeah.
question. I think for me, what I ultimately really learned was understand what the vision is. Understand really clearly. If you don't know anything, if you don't make a million friends, if you don't scale, have a very clear understanding, what is this company trying to do? Because once you understand that, then you understand your role within it. Eventually you'll be able to get to the place of, and what else you can offer.
I love that.
And also you can spot the gaps.
I really love
Yeah.
that because I I see it in twofold. So like a lot of
Hmm.
people are just thinking my role, like I'm an engineer or I'm a product
Yeah.
manager or I'm
Hmm.
compliance manager and I want to find a job and
Right.
they focus on that. And even for me as an entrepreneur working with clients, I have to admit I don't always think about the vision
Right.
of my clients and where they want to go. That is
Hmm.
so, yeah, that is such a
It make
gem.
all the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. When you were in those roles,
Hmm.
did you ever think, this is not where I want to be? Like, how did you know when it was time to move on, for example? So you understood the vision and where you sat in that, but what would make you move on to the next opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had that as a thought, probably more often than what I probably should have. Because one thing I knew is there's this ultimate place in life where I want to be. And so I was seeing each role. It took me a while to get there because, you start young and so forth. But I was kind of seeing each role as an opportunity to learn, to develop, to stretch, and to be challenged. How I knew when it was time to move on was more so around, I think I'm done. Everything that I believe I came in here to offer and to do, I believe I've done that. And it's now time for me to move on. Because and this is where you've really got to know yourself really well and live in the present, as well as, yes, living in the future, but be very present with yourself, have conversations with yourself, be honest with yourself. And if you're not at that place where you can thoughtfully do that, then have almost like an accountability partner that you can have some conversations with quite openly, and they can maybe objectively have a conversation to say, well, what about this and what about that? But I think because I've always been really honest with myself, I've known you're done. The reason for why you're here, you achieved it? Yes. Have you gone a little bit further? Yes. But there's also been roles straight up, I just didn't like it. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
I just
that honesty.
this
Yeah.
is this is not always deep and philosophical. I don't like this. I don't like you. I don't like this environment. Get me out. Those were also good and necessary because it also was teaching me what I like, what's the right environment, where I thrive, and also what gets under my skin and what challenges me. Because look, life is this, it's not always going to be the bed of roses. Sometimes you're going to be uncomfortable and sometimes you're going to be in environments that are not comfortable, but this is going to test your reaction.
Yes, and it makes
It's
you grow.
going to test how are you going. Like, you are stepping on my toe every single day I come into work. Okay, that's one thing. Now, Shirleena, let's check your reaction.
Yes, yes.
Let's
All
see
of
how
those
you go.
difficult, I guess,
Yeah,
people conversations, it does,
there
I
you
guess,
go.
maybe shape you for your next journey, isn't it?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's also recognizing that you're going to have roles that are not the greatest roles and you want to run. Now, whether it's time to run or not, you're going to have to make that assessment and measure that obviously against your well-being, especially your mental health. But if the door hasn't opened yet for you to be able to exit, this is also a good time because it's testing you when you're stressed, when you're pressured, when you're challenged, when you don't have a response, because those things are going to be necessary for the future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed, indeed. And I think I want to move on to your journey at Apple. So thinking about all of this experience has, helped shaped you, build up a really an amazing career and CV, and then Apple come along. So we all know Apple, it's one of the most valuable companies in the world. I think at one point it was the most valuable. How did you get your role at Apple? If you can just talk us through that.
Very good question. Very good question. Everyone thinks I had this like, they headhunted me and da da da, and it's nothing like that. It really isn't. So I was in a personal transition, massive personal transition in my life. And I was actually looking to quit on life, quit on everything, quit. Because to be very transparent, at that time I was a single mom and I'd come out of quite an abusive relationship. And so I wasn't in the mood for anything. And suddenly I was like, "Oh, I've got the title single black mom." A title that I never imagined that I would have. I didn't particularly have any deep thoughts about it at that time, but I felt the weight and it felt like this was a burden. And so, in order to keep my child tax credits, I need a job and I
Yeah.
need one fast.
Yes.
Basically, I was just applying for jobs like it was going out of fashion. And I just happened to be on Apple's website, scroll to the bottom, it said jobs. I clicked on it and I saw that there were some retail jobs.
Yeah.
I don't know nothing about no tech, no iPad, no, I don't know. I knew nails, infills, shoes, and Nando's. That's
That
it.
was
I don't
it.
know. I don't know about all this other stuff, right? So I applied, not thinking that I would ever get a role. They called me in for an interview, like this group interview, and I just thought, look, nothing else is going on. So I went for the interview, and I just kept getting through every round, and I thought, oh, I might get this job, and I don't even know if I want it. I don't think I want it. I don't want to work. Who are these people? So eventually it came down to three of us and I got the phone call. Congratulations, you got the job. I was like, oh, thank you. But that child tax credit, oh yeah, it came in like a flood. So I was like, I'll take it.
Yes.
So before I knew it, there's me standing in a retail store with an Apple t-shirt, 16 hours a week and selling iPhones. And my full time was I was at university doing my undergrad. So that's how I got into Apple. And by the time I graduated, I was just like, I wanted to be a HR advisor, for goodness sake. And by the time I graduated, my then manager, Andy, was like, we love you. And because I came with humanity, I was like, yeah, we're selling phones, but we're a team and let's make it a good experience. So he was like, we love you. And I went full time sales. And I'm like, look, after this, Andy, as soon as I get the HR job, I'm out of here. He's like, yeah, yeah, whatever. And then eventually I ended up becoming a supervisor. I then had to travel to Leicester. This was a couple of years later. I'm now remarried to my husband, Namdi, who had to drop me off at the train station in Sheffield at 5:30 every morning so that I could go and open up the store. He hated it with a
Oh,
passion.
but what a good
Yeah.
husband. Oh, yeah.
I, he would be like, good husband or not,
He's
I'm
like,
tired.
it wasn't fun. Yeah.
Like, this is not like this you going to work, I'm not. So he was like dropping me. And then yeah, and then long story short is I remember we came to the lockdown and I just before the lockdown I was like, look, I'm out of here, because I was scaling and whatever, and I was like, I'm out of here. And when all was said and done, I then was stopped. It was actually my husband who said, hey, don't leave yet. I feel God said no. I was like, which God, or my God or your God? So he was like, stay. So I was like, oh, for goodness sake. So I did. A couple months later, we came to the lockdown. I was like, I was with you. Like, me and you were so tight. So I stayed. And in the lockdown, I started a small group with, I think it was only about 5 women. We were just talking about where you're getting your hair products from because every shop is closed. So are you growing locks? Are you braiding, shaving your hair? And it went from 5 to 30. I then started talking about some more interesting things like Michelle Obama's documentary Becoming. We were just powwowing as ladies. Then we came to the killing of George Floyd, and it went from 5 to 30 to 100. And I'll never forget when it was 100, because that was the max that my virtual room could take. It was a couple of days later that I then got a text message from a friend of mine saying, how do you feel? I was like, what are you talking about? She said, how do you feel? I was like, about what? And then she said, have they not told you? And I was like, no. She goes, well, I won't tell you. I was like, look, tell me. And whenever it happens, I just pretend like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So as she was about to tell me, I got this text to basically say that you've been asked to host a community call. So I said to her, I said, is it this community call? She's like, oh my God, how do you feel? I'm Jamaican.
Yeah.
Anytime you go and mention that word community, I'm thinking patty, ginger
Oh,
beer, and bulla, and 50 people, like the
yeah.
community. So she was like, you don't get it, do you? And I was like, what are you talking about? She said, Shirleena, you've been asked to host a virtual call to discuss the killing of George Floyd, but this call is for 3,000 employees and every senior leader across EMEA, Middle East, India, and Africa. And it has been the biggest virtual call across that region in the history of Apple. So I was like, oh,
Okay.
a bit different to the 50 people from Jamaican
Yeah.
community. So I was like, wow. I was like, but why me? I was like, there's plenty of it. And they were like, no, they've been watching, and Tim and the team actually want you to do it. I was like, okay. So from there, I did this famous biggest call in its history. And man, it was something else. And it got passionate. People really said how they feel. And I knew that that was the turning point for my career. From there, my mentor, EJ, he then called me and said, how do you feel? And I said, it's a bit strange, really. But he said, well, how did you prepare? And I said, I'm a preacher as well. So I just prepared like it was a sermon and, was about bringing the message of hope and love, but giving space for people to express themselves. And from there, I then ended up doing a career experience, doing training and development, which was really my area anyway. But I was doing it virtually for the London office. 5 months. I did 4 months. I then happened to see my former manager, Ebro, on TV. I was like, oh, I'd love to meet him one day. And 5 days later, my then manager said, oh, you've got an interview. We put your resume, CV forward. to go and work for Ebro Darden. I was like, the Ebro? Never thought I'd get it in a million years. And long story short is that's how I ended up coming into the global program manager role for Apple Music, Podcast Beats, and a load of other stuff.
So if I'm just trying to just process that, I was thinking, you're really good at storytelling, by the way. I was like, woo, like an incredible story. But I guess it's like one. So you were stepping into your purpose at your place of work, and it was like your visibility. So you were actually, community building, pouring into others. Senior leaders noticed that, and then they said, right, she is the woman to take us through this difficult time. And then it's like, because senior leaders, you were visible to them, these opportunities came to you. Is that
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the thing is that what I was doing, I was way outside my role. By the time we got into the lockdown and doing all these extra things, I mean, I was one of the leaders for what is known in Apple as Black at Apple. It's like an internal community that focuses on the Black community, and they have women at Apple, veterans, and so forth. So that wasn't my full-time job. That was more you get to volunteer to do those kinds of things. So that actually was more of what I was passionate about than my actual day-to-day role. And so I believe it was God and destiny that allowed me to be able to lean into that at a time when we all needed hope, we all needed love, we all needed to talk. That I was then able to use my gift, as the word says, your gift will make a room for you. So I stepped into the room unapologetically, of course, with others. And so that I wasn't even thinking about it. To me, I was just naturally being me, and we had fun because I remember saying to the team, look, we are having such heavy conversations about areas and matters and issues that are quite painful to us. And we're having to expose ourselves to others, our allies, in trust, in hopes that they will understand and that they will help to make things better. But I also said we have to be careful, because if we continue to do this daily, it's not good for our health, because life isn't about just telling our pain. So I remember saying, where's the joy? Where's the joy? So where's the joy was, I remember saying we need something that speaks from our soul but is joyful. So we created something called B, that was at that time it stood for Black Excellence. And we had a time. It was like a virtual concert, and people who knew, who could sing, who could rap. Someone was playing the flute, flowetry, poetry, you name it, we had it. And it was just the Black community and our allies. We just had the most amount of fun. So I also learned about how I, alongside others, can also, out of pain, how do we bring joy? How do we bring the balance as well? So that basically provided that extra exposure, because these were things that Apple had never done, like never. And we don't do this for people, and we don't do this at work. Oh, well,
You're going to
I
do it
don't do
now. Yeah, being like a sort of
so
breaking
yeah,
the
it was
mold and
like kicking
breaking.
walls down. It was like,
Yes.
yeah, kicking walls down, and just not
Yeah.
caring, but not caring, to say, you want the best out of people. Let's try something we've never done before.
I love that. And I mean, thinking about your remit, it was huge. So as you mentioned, Apple Music, podcasts, Beats by Dre, Apple Video, and sports. So what are you most proud of as your in terms of your work in that remit? And like, if you could think about a pinch me moment, and then maybe a moment that, almost broke you.
Oh, most proud of, I think it's probably the relationships that I had, and how no matter who I connected with, always just being myself. That didn't mean that I didn't have moments, like we all do, where you feel like you're not enough and should I do more and what do people think? But just saying, do you know what? This is me. This is who I am. I get it right sometimes, I sometimes don't get it right. I know some things I just don't know, but just being myself all the time, I think that for me is the one thing that I was really proud of, because I realized the power of friendship. I realized the power of inspiration and how far that could take you. And also realizing that most people are just looking for normality, like, oh, thank you. Thank you for just being normal. Thank you for not like coming in, starting up here, but we're just starting here. And it made all the difference to sparking ideas, presenting big ideas, moving things forward, having uncomfortable conversations. So I think for me that was one of the things I was most proud of. I think in addition to the pinch me moment, I think there's two. So I must try and squeeze two in. I think the first one was a program that is still live to this day that I'm really proud of. Is called Beats Academy. And Beats Academy, how that started, and I'm proud I named the baby Beats Academy. Anyway, we
Yes.
digress. Beats Academy is a program that Beats has, and I remember starting that just in a conversation to my then colleague Omar, and I said, Omar, I need to tell you a story. He's like, okay, here we go again, Shirleena. I was like, just bear with me. I had a maths teacher. He happened to be a black man back in the 80s. And I remember the feeling that I got, you're black and you're a maths teacher, because I was so used to seeing all my teachers just being white. So I paid no attention to what he was teaching, but I was just more in awe that you're a maths teacher and you're black. I was terrible at maths anyway. So I said to him, I want to recreate that feeling because it was inspirational and it gave me hope and it let me know that I could probably try to do anything that I really wanted to do. So I remember Omar and I having this conversation, and I said, I feel as though, why can't we put people behind the curtain? Why can't we? Because, Apple's in privacy and secrecy and all this stuff. But how do we get people behind the curtain? And also, how do we teach our very own community that there are so many diverse roles? Yes, doctor, lawyer, and all the rest of it. But what about working in marketing? Being the analyst, how do we get them to know these other roles that exist? So I said, let's pilot a program. So we did. So a couple of years ago, we piloted a program. We brought in 16 young people from 4 different organizations. We created masterclasses, and somehow, boom, it worked. It worked. And they were like, I didn't know that you could do this as a job. I didn't know that this existed. Ah, okay, that's how that worked. And I remember me and Omar was like, this is it. So from that moment, it's then scaled and it now sits all over the world. So a really
I've
proud moment
seen
with
that.
that.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
so
really
good
proud.
to see it
Really, really proud.
scale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really proud moment to see that. And then the second one was conversation. I always like to have a really good, hearty conversation and like get into it. And when all was said and done, I remember that International Women's Month was always a thing. And of course, they were like, well, what could we do? And I remember one of the leaders was like, Shirleena, can you think of something? I'm like, can I think of something? Of
Of
course.
course.
So,
Say the
so
word.
I'm like, we like to talk. So long story short is I created something, which I keep saying I'm going to continue, something called the She Conversation. And the She Conversation was about just having a real honest conversation with women politely. I don't care what your title is. I want to talk to women. Like, you come into the room, leave your title outside. But when you come in this room, we're showing up as women and we're just going to have the dialogue. And so we started virtually. And then from being virtual out the blue, they were like, we have budget to make it a TV show. Oh, really? Okay, let's go. So it went from being this video call to becoming this internal TV show for, I think it was up to 15,000 employees
Oh, so this was
within
internal.
Apple. This was in
That's what
Apple
Apple does for their
internally.
employees. They make TV shows for their employees. What?
Well,
Because
I
I
heard
was
that
like,
from
how
my
did I miss this?
mom. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. And I
Wow.
for its time,
Hmm.
and I'll stand corrected, it was kind of like the first real TV show that had run year on year for this part of Apple. And I was a little bit nervous because technically I'm not a TV presenter. I'm not, I'm not the Oprah, but I always secretly was like, I'm better than Oprah. I know I'm better than her. I love her, but I'm better. Don't tell her I said that. But anyway, so I
Speak
always
it
wanted to
into
have that
existence and
moment.
speaking
Yeah,
it.
like the British, I'm like Trisha, yeah? So I was like, let's bring Trisha to Apple. And so, yeah, we did a thing, but I said to them, look, I need you to trust me that I feel as though I know what will make this work. And what will make this work is I need you to leave the scripts outside. Because if we're going to keep it authentic, we're going to keep it honest, just trust me that people want to have a normal conversation. And so I'll never forget my manager, Ebro, his manager, Rachel and Oliver. They were as nervous because Apple's got like big talent and, you know, Hollywood and all the rest of it. Here comes me from Sheffield saying, yeah, I want to have my own TV show with no experience, nothing. And I remember we went through rehearsal, but in the rehearsal, I don't like to do it in detail because you've got to capture it as is. So I remember like the global leader, Oliver, was like, you know, like you want, I was like, no, it's cool, man. Chill, let's go eat. And so long story short is we ran it and it became so successful and people completely loved it. And so we ended up running it year on year. And that was definitely my pinch me moment because while I knew that it was a passion, and when I think about, you know, having started these small conversations in iMessenger with just 5 people that eventually scaled to this virtual one for 3,000, then here I am now on this stage with my own TV show called The She Conversation. So it was kind of like, you know, time and destiny came together.
And can you share like what people you had? Was it like external famous people that you invited to come in, or was it just Apple people? Yeah.
So we kept it. We did have artists that actually came. We actually had one artist, but I have to remain silent on that one. But I wanted it to be women that worked internal.
Right.
Because I think for me, it was too easy. I mean, my day to day, don't get it twisted. I mean, I've met everyone from Beyonce to DJ Khaled and all the rest of it, which is fine. But I wanted this to be the voice of the women behind the music, behind beats, because those are the women that never get seen. And I was like, yeah, we want them in a makeup chair. We want them to get their hair done. So yeah, so this was internal staff, but it was full production in every sense. And so, yeah, it was incredible. It really, really was. And that's the moment that I was like, yeah, this is what you're called to do.
You moved from the UK to California. How did that happen? And sort of like, what made you think, okay, I'm going to move to the other side of the world? Yeah.
That's a good question. So the role that I sat within was actually a LA-based role.
Okay.
But because we were in the lockdown, they gave me the extra grace to do a year in the UK, which worked out really well because my daughter was doing her GCSEs. Plus, she was like, Mum, I don't even know if I want to go. My friends, X, Y, and Z. And then she didn't want to miss prom. So I was like, so that extra year worked out really well. So she got to go to prom, etc. So that worked out. But then moving to California, it was a massive step because I've always done America almost like nearly twice a year, but I'd always done the East Coast. I'd never even ventured into the West Coast. And my husband, he's lived in many places, like he's lived in Malaysia, he's lived in Australia, he's lived in the UK. He hadn't even stepped foot in America, let alone me trying to say, you want to move to America?
That's a big ask, right?
So, yeah, so it was big. And I was like, man, and to be honest with you, it was a real step of faith for us more than anything else, because we didn't know what we were stepping into. The West Coast and the East Coast couldn't be different. They're very, very different culturally. And so I think because when we were looking at everything and everything that was happening, we could see this momentum. We could see, you know, very much God's hand opening up this door, this door, this door, this door. So it was inevitable that we were going to step in. I had always had a sense that I was going to move to America. I just didn't know when. And this is from me being very young. I always kind of knew that I was going to live somewhere really sunny, really hot. And I used to have dreams about it, but I just didn't know when or where. And my husband, you know, he had said, it was always told to him, like, you need to go to America. And people were like, why? We don't know. You just look like, you know, he's a handsome Nigerian, you know, Igbo.
Oh, I see, yes.
So, yes.
Like,
so
belong somewhere glamorous, not in this.
Very, and hello, Los Angeles, Bel Air, Hollywood, all the rest. So he just slides right in.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess, what has been your experience? Obviously, you're still there. So, and I know from having conversations with you, you are really sort of like loving it. But what are the main differences between, I guess, living in the US and the UK?
Apart from the fact that they don't have Marks and Spencers.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Big deal for me.
But they've got Whole Foods, but it's not the same, is it?
No,
yeah,
it's not. You can't get the the chicken korma from Marks and Spencer's. You can't get coleslaw. It's not the
Oh
same.
gosh, yeah, I had that this
And
weekend.
custard,
That
Devonshire
yeah, okay.
custard.
Yes, I
Okay,
feel
so
you.
anyway, so
Yes.
those are some of the key differences.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would probably just say, in terms of sometimes perspective and how things are seen, I would definitely say that as a Brit, we are quite straight, very sensible, and have a very common sense approach. Whereas I think in America, sometimes it can be quite whimsical, like, oh my gosh, and what about this? And what about this? Whereas as Brits, we're sometimes quite straight down the line. And I think I'm a mixture of both, to be quite honest with you. I think where it stood out for me was in the customer service. In England, it's kind of like, come on in, take a seat, and you'll be served. Here in America, it's like, come on in, here's a mint, here's a cake, here's a piece of bread, here's this, here's that.
They
Just
want their
put me on my
tip.
feet. I don't need all this extra stuff. Like in America, you get extra for extra. I remember using DoorDash, which is basically a service that you can use to get kind of like, Tesco delivery, where your shopping gets delivered. Now, I'm used to in the UK, they come, your stuff gets delivered, they deliver it outside, you pick it up, put it in your fridge. When I was using DoorDash to order my food from Ralph's, you get little notes, you get little gifts, you get little from the actual person that's delivered it. I'm like, it's okay, you've delivered it. But they, so customer service definitely was one big thing. I do think that in the UK, there are some spaces where we're a little bit more ahead, just in the practical. Like in the UK, Apple Pay, you just tap and go, tap and go. In America, we still sign in. We still
Really?
sign. Yes.
Oh my God, I
Yes.
thought they had made that like,
No, man. Yeah,
oh,
like we have it, but it's not everywhere. It's not everywhere. So
okay.
you walk with your card, know your PIN number, and
Jeez.
recognize that you go and sign. And checks are still a thing here.
Oh gosh. Yeah, so it's kind of like that thing around the whole modernization. It's not really, I guess, what it appears to be. But let's talk about leaving Apple. So you've left Apple after many years, so much success, and you're
Nearly
now
10
kind of
years.
but how long?
Nearly 10 years.
10
It was
years, a
time.
long time. So what made you decide, okay, now it's time to leave?
I think, like what I've mentioned before, you get to a place, it's time. It's just time to exit. And so that time definitely came to exit. And in exiting, here comes all of my passion. So remember, I was saying to you earlier about, and I know this is what I'm called to do. What I did in Apple, I did as per the credo, the mission statement of Apple, which is about coming to Apple to do the best work of your life. And I really felt I was given that opportunity to do the best work of my life. And Vanessa, I really did. I did, like, y'all got the best of me. And so I was really proud to have influenced the culture of Apple in the way that I was afforded to. One of my biggest goals was to get on that big stage. And I think that's probably when I knew, I think I'm in the countdown. Because I remember, within the last year, I was afforded that opportunity to go and present on the Steve Jobs Theatre stage, with Blair Underwood. Remember LA Law back in the day?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
time.
Yes. Yeah. And so me thinking, I remember being a kid watching Blair, and then
I
here I
remember
am.
growing up, he was like our
Right.
Aaron Pierre, basically.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
So here I am with Blair,
Wow.
and we were presenting on that stage for Black History Month, a really big presentation for Apple. And I think I started to realize, again, I'm coming to that place where it's finished. And so understanding, I know the culture of Apple inside and out. I know what makes Apple's culture successful. I know why the leaders are successful, the teams are successful, what drives them, what pushes them, because I was at the heart of, helping to build that, certainly within the side of the business that I was in, both internally and then having the privilege, because they trusted me enough to do that externally in so many different places. And I know now it's time for me to do that outside of the walls of Apple. And so that brings me to my personal passions and focus, which is around how leaders lead, how organizations drive and motivate their people for success. We're no longer in an era which is you come, the expectation, come to work, do your job because of the title and because of the money that we're paying you. That doesn't work anymore because there are many options and people, don't want to show up just to do the job. Hence, we're now in an era of being my authentic self, showing up as my whole self. All of these things we learned very much, of course, in the lockdown, but the lockdown has changed humanity forever.
Yeah.
And so I really feel as though there's a lot alongside others that I can contribute. It's also my way of giving back. I know there are many people who are curious as to how do you get that result? Or how do I change? How do I shift? How do I show up? I'm here for that. I'm here for that now.
So you kind of now are in entrepreneurship, right? So you've kind of taken the leap. And how has that been? And kind of how do you deal with going from 10 years in this mega corporate, everything's at your disposal, right, at Apple, to now having to run your own business? How has that journey been?
Yeah, I'm I remember it's like you open the door, in front of you is just water. And I remember taking the first step, not knowing whether that step was going to be shallow, mid, or deep.
Wow.
And when I opened the door and took the step out, it was deep.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a really good analogy. So you have to kind of just sink or swim.
So this is kind of like, as you said, are you going to sink, or are you going to swim, or are you going to float?
Yeah.
And I think for the first part, you're kind of like, and that scramble is because you've been reliant on a system that repeats itself every 30 days.
Yes. Yes.
Right? That's not
You
there
get your
now.
salary,
So you kind of like, whoa. So you do that. Then I think you come to the reality of you need to give yourself a little bit of time to rest and reflect and edit.
Yeah.
The last 10 years. That for me is the float.
I see.
I'm floating. I'm reflecting. I'm editing, and I'm understanding what was all of that about. And then after you've floated, now you begin to swim. You take the first stroke, then you start taking another. So I'm in the process now of taking my strokes.
Yeah. And what does that look like? Are you because I love that, because I think some people just jump into, because that's what I did. I left my corporate job and then went straight into running my business, and I didn't have that floating and reflecting on what have I been doing the last 10 years. You kind of just jump into it. So I love that analogy, and not analogy, but just the practice of that. And I guess how is it now that you're kind of full into it, like in terms of your work?
Sure.
If you want to tell us a bit more about what you do. Yeah.
So for me, in that period of floating, that really allowed me to just have the space that I needed, which maybe I never really afforded to myself. I knew what I could do. I knew what I was doing. I knew the impact based on feedback and results and so forth. But I'd never given myself the time to just float and stand outside of it and take a look at what was all of that.
Yeah.
So in doing all of that, then I was able, again, still in float, to then be able to say, okay, what is it that where is it rather I want to swim to? Because remember I was saying earlier about you need to know what the vision is. Where are we going? Mm-hmm. So understanding the destination, that's when your imagination comes into it, which is where have I had my most successful moments? My most successful moments have sat around culture, education, training, development, inspirational moments, and specifically, yes, with teams, because it was always like my office was, can I come in and talk? Okay, come on. Shut the door. Shut the
Yeah. Oh,
door.
I love
Sit
that.
down. Sit down.
Yeah.
So I understood teams, but then I was also the one, certainly within Apple, I could have those conversations with the leaders
Right. I
to
see.
say, look, I know you've got this KPI. I know that you've got this objective, but your objective can never be realized and it can never be achieved without human effort. And if you are not great at human effort, you can forget about all those results.
Yes. I
So
love
we
that.
need to get you to be the most incredible leader that you can be towards every human effort that has a fingerprint on this KPI objective or whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. That's the training and development of the leader. Now, just because you have that title, Mr. or Mrs. Leader, that doesn't mean that you're great at it. Someone just thought enough
Exactly.
of you to give it to you.
People don't realize that. They don't. And they think that they're amazing. And it's like, do you know what? You need some help.
Yeah,
You
you
need
need some
a coach.
human help.
Yeah, you need a
Yeah,
coach. Yeah.
yeah.
It's so important.
And
Yeah.
so that's the area where I believe I'm really good. I'm really good at being able to speak to those leaders at whatever level you are, wherever you show up as a leader, to say, what are you trying to do? Exactly. What is it? What are you trying to achieve? And then looking at what you're trying to achieve and say, okay, who's involved? Who exactly is involved? Whether it's a team, vendor, contractor, let's take a look at the people that are involved. And now let's take a look at you and how you show up toward them, how you impact them, how you influence them, and how they're responding. Because sometimes that's where the disconnect is. We know what you're trying to do, we know your job title, but you're not necessarily good with other human beings to get you that result. So then that's when I come in as the coach or the trainer or trainer in the area of development to put the two together and to challenge to say, you can keep doing what you're doing, but rest assured you will not get that result because what you're doing involves other human beings. And I think that up until 2019, many leaders led from the point of view of just get that done. This is the project. How many people do we need for this project? And got results. But as soon as we stepped into the lockdown and we all started talking about how we really feel at work,
Yes.
I believe that changed our humanity forever.
Ever. Yeah, it
And
was.
so when people came back into the office, you could no longer just simply say to them, get it done. You would say that, get it done, and then they would say, oh, and let me tell you how you make me feel. Let me tell you that I don't feel my voice is heard. Let me tell you how I feel excluded and not included. Oh, yeah. People now, your team is now talking back to you. And so now we have leaders saying, well, where did all this come from? And leaders are trying to lead like how they were leading up until 2019. And we have teams who were saying, no, everything has changed. And so it's making for leaders and organizations, it makes them feel like to get the results is much harder. And then don't you start adding the layers of government and politics. Oh. So I'm there to really say to leaders, you have to lead not just from a point of view of productivity, but you have to lead first from understanding the humanity in your project as well as everything else.
I love that. I love that. And I feel like, I'm really excited for you on this new journey. But I feel like one of the questions I wanted to kind of close with was in terms of just looking back and thinking about what is the common thread that connects every chapter of your journey. But I think you kind of covered that, right? In terms of, you said that you were looking into sort of like what sections like culture and leadership and coaching. So it's so great for you to still sort of be doing that on your own
Just
terms.
humanizing, like humanizing, Yeah, you're a leader, great, whatever your title, but you're a human, and so is this person, and you can get greater results. So for me, if it's one word, it would be to bring human connection.
That's such a good way to kind of end, I guess, our official interview. But I'm going to do a quick fire round. So this is like a round where we'll just ask you some questions to kind of get to know you a little bit more deeper and have a bit of fun. So just just say the first, thing that kind of comes to your mind. So my first question to you for the quick fire round is: are you a morning or night owl?
Night.
Okay. And what is your favorite playlist or artist right now?
Oh, Bob Marley and the Wheelers.
Oh,
Bob Marley,
brilliant.
just Bob Marley, just Bob,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bob Marley.
Any Bob Marley.
Yeah,
Good.
anything. Yeah, anything that's Bob Marley, I'm always gonna be chill. Just give me my pina colada, give me my Jamaican flag,
Yes.
and finish.
I'm going to actually start playing that tonight as a nice little wind
Yeah,
down, actually. I've forgotten.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's chill, man.
Brilliant. And what is one word your friends would use to describe you?
Inspirational.
I would use that too as well.
Every
Definitely.
time.
What's the best piece of career advice you've ever received?
The worst that you will get is a no.
True. And it's not really the worst, is it?
No.
Yeah, I love that.
You're just standing in the same place you were before you asked the question.
Yes. And finally, if you could have dinner with anyone in history, who would it be and why?
Ay, ay, ay. Oh, Vanessa.
That's a hard
Come
one.
on. Come on. I want like the Lord's Supper style. Like I get to pick 12. But anyway,
Well, we
I
could do
think
that. Okay, let's
no,
let's
no, 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 no. If there's a few people, okay, if there's a few people
yeah, you could.
at my
Yeah.
table, let's do Lord's Supper style. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'll say 12, by the way. So at the table, definitely would be Harriet Tubman,
Yes.
for sure. Of course, we need Bob because we need some music.
Yes.
Queen Esther from the Bible.
Yes.
There's a lot of questions I'd love to ask her.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington.
Yes.
I like how he moves. Jamie Foxx.
Oh, he'd be fun.
Jamie Foxx and Bernie. We need humor.
Yes.
We
Oh
we
God, that
need,
would be so good.
yeah, we definitely need some humor. I'd bring in Michelle O.
Obama.
We
Yeah.
love the star. We got to look good.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we definitely got to look good. And who else would I bring to that table? Let's come up with a final person. Final person would be, I think, my mom.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I'd bring my
Yeah.
mom. She won't want to be there, I'll be honest
Yeah.
with you, because she's like, I'm in heaven. What
With
is
these
what you
people?
bring me down here for? But I would.
Yeah.
Because my mum was really good at cutting cake
Oh, I
equally.
love that.
You know, when you
Yeah.
go to like a wedding reception, there's always like, my mum was meticulous at cutting cake. But yeah, and I think it would just be a good time to say, see, mum, see?
See, look
Did
what your
I
girl
not do
did.
that?
I
Yeah,
love it. Oh, Shirleena, thank you so much. You've been an
no problem.
amazing, amazing,
No problem.
amazing guest.